Were you a scrapbooker?
You were a scrapbooker.
I was a scrapbooker. I was going to try to pull you down.
I wanted to be like you. Listen, do you know how many scrapbooks I have in my closet that I've never done anything because I wanted to be like you?
Oh, well, I wanted to be like you. So there you go. That's the story of this podcast right there. Hey guys, welcome to the Well Grounded Podcast. You are here for episode 1. I can't believe it. So there's a whole fun story here, and we're going to share it with you today and just pull you into this world and how this all started. So crazy.
I'm actually just, so we introduce ourselves,
Oh,
Diane,
yes.
and you are?
Leigh Ann. Yes, thank you.
And we've known each other for many, many years. Our kids have grown up together. We have kids. My kids are 23 to 14, and Leigh Ann, your kids are
20. I'll be 26 this summer to 17.
17.
So 9-year spread of our kids. So
our kids have grown up. We've done life together. We've just done so many great things that it's just kind of a natural thing that this has happened, but totally like you were even going to share about how that story happened.
Yes, we got to get back to how we met. We're going to get into that in a minute. But I just wanted to say this particular moment, historical, big moment in our lives of sitting down and actually doing this has been kind of a joke and a dream mixed together for a while. So last summer, we were on a trip with our families together, and we just kept sharing things about this season of life and about what this is like, launching kids into college and beyond, and
adulting, all those crazy transitions,
challenges than we saw when they were little. And those were real. Those were serious. Those were big to us then.
Yes.
And there were lots of resources to help us.
Oh,
and
absolutely.
Now we're like, can anybody help us walk through this? This is so big. And these are people that we adore, and our families, our kids, their friends, their significant others, all of that. And so we just want to circle back to what was just a list of great ideas. We should do a podcast on this.
We should do a podcast. We had lots of random thoughts. We were always thinking, oh, what about this? What about that?
Text that to each other.
And the list got very long. And then about a month ago,
it
was absolutely crazy. My husband just came up with this great idea to say, well, why don't we do this?
Yes.
And the funny thing is, this room that we're actually sitting in right now that you see all these different decorations was actually my oldest daughter's room. And it had furniture and a bed and dressers and all that kind of stuff in it. And now we've completely renovated it and made it into this completely awesome space. So
there's significance in that too, I think.
Yes.
The child has grown up, and the parents have now, the moms are out here doing this. So.
I'm excited about this space because I just think that no matter what happens with this podcast, it's just such a refreshment to me. That there is something new in life.
Yeah.
When your kids do go and start launching themselves into the world, and you're not anymore the most important person in their life.
Yes.
It's neat to know that you can still have that dream and that desire as well.
Yes. There's significance in sharing our experience and our story, but also we're still learning. We're kind of you're getting to see us walking through this in real time because we are praying for our kids. We are trying to give them wise counsel. We care so much about their friends and their relationships and their walk with the Lord and all of that. So it's like all of that kind of coming together, and we're just going to take you along on the journey with us.
On the journey.
So good. So good.
Well, one of the fun things that we're going to do with each episode is we're going to have something called the latte moment. We are excited.
Time for that right now.
I know.
Dun-dun.
We even have something in our coffee cups. We're excited to have some lattes here, but we're going to do a special coffee recipe each and every time. It could even be a tea recipe. It could be something fun. We like a good tea as well as a good coffee. But coffee is about connection.
Yes.
I almost honestly think about this as a coffee, is like a coffee connection to our lives.
Yes.
Where it's a full circle moment.
Yes.
Years ago when we had little kids, we didn't even have a coffee place to go to. There was not a Starbucks.
No.
I mean, we're going way back here, people.
We did go to each other's houses for coffee.
We would go to each other's houses, or we would go to a restaurant or something. But now that our adult kids want to hang out with us, guess where they want to go?
Yeah.
they want to meet at a coffee shop.
Cute coffee shops.
Cute ones.
You have to say cute or cool or fun.
The aesthetic. It has to have an aesthetic.
Yes.
And so it's just kind of a full circle moment that we can just sit here today and just be thinking about how God has brought us here.
That's right.
But back to the recipe. So each latte moment, we are going to share a recipe with you. So today's recipe, I want to preface that I found this on the internet. I did not create this. This is nothing.
The internet is a vast and wonderful place.
You can find this just like I can, but we are going to do something called a cinnamon roll latte. And we're going to put that recipe in our show notes. And you can go and look that up at Well Grounded Podcast on Instagram. And I want you to try this. Like, we want you to try it and let us know how you like it.
Give us that feedback.
And give us feedback. But this recipe, to me, I feel like is got a little bit of spice, a little bit of sass, and a little bit of sweet. So it's the perfect combination to totally get us started on this podcast.
Love it.
So make sure you look at those notes, and we're also going to be posting that later after the show, and you'll be able to try it out yourself. But I think it's a great thing. And listen, cheers.
Oh, cheers.
Cheers. This is to new beginnings.
So fun.
New fun things. Definitely. So what do you want to talk about next?
All right. I was just going to go and jump into our story. Like, what's the history here? So do you remember how we met, Diane?
Well, I think you should tell that story.
She doesn't remember. Let's be honest.
Because
we quizzed her. I quizzed her on this and she was like, why don't you share?
Because I think that's, yes.
She knows a lot of people. So I do remember my first memory. I don't know if it was our first meeting or not.
True.
But we were neighbors.
Yes.
Or in the same neighborhood.
Yes.
And so Diane and her husband had a small group, and y'all had already started, right?
I believe so.
We were pretty. It was early days, but yeah. So we
about
were
5 couples that we met up with. Yeah,
had another neighbor, our precious friends that were down the street. That they actually knew us from school, like school moms, and we were at the neighborhood pool and we're just hanging out, and they introduced us, and all of our kids just instantly had so much fun. Really,
they all had similar ages,
overlapping,
so it was just kind of like
close age.
Yes, they kind of connected well,
and we had some really fun that particular summer. We were like ordering
pool
pizzas.
rats,
yes,
what they call pool rats.
Yes, and there were some sweet like older people in the neighborhood, and they would see us coming and be like packing up their towels, like, oh, here's the families. They have 3 kids at the time.
Yes,
because Ethan wasn't born yet. Your youngest wasn't born yet.
Yeah.
And then we had a new baby so our third was there, just very young, and it was just wildness, but the best kind. Like, I say that with love. Wildness.
We would literally sit there for hours.
Oh, hours. Because the kids were so happy.
Yes. And we were prunes, and we could talk as adults because the kids were busy and hanging out, and we could always have a conversation.
So fun. So fun. So we got invited to the small group because of that neighborhood connection, even though everybody else in the small group attended a church, but my husband plays piano for churches. And so we weren't, we were involved in another church at the time. And it was just such a gift to us that ended up paying off in years to come.
Definitely.
So we just began doing things, and a small group was twice a month, maybe at that time. Yeah. Like I was every other week. And I just want to do shout out to Diane. Diane is the best at traditions, and I mean it. I'm serious, but she's that friend that has the continuity, and she's that rock solid. We're going to make a plan. We're going to stick to that plan. We're going to make this a priority. And
probably sometimes to a fault, but yes.
I didn't feel that way at the time. There were, as kids got older and we got into things, it was becoming more challenging for that regular, but we had years and years and years of that continuity and that consistency, and built those traditions in that my kids still talk about.
There was Christmas parties. There was summer parties.
My husband would play the carols on the piano, and we would do caroling and sing. You had a really great 4th of July, Easter, like just those fun things. And at that time, and still really to this day, I mean, we did not have extended family in town.
Yeah.
And so that was our family, that local friend group and sweet group. So that's kind of how the backstory with the her 3 girls and my 2 girls. And then they had the sleepovers and growing up together and hanging out, different schools, different things. But
lots of memories, what we call core memories.
yes, yes.
Just let's all take a snapshot. Okay, so there was no Instagram back then. There was really maybe Facebook,
Just
but
started Facebook.
not really.
When
and so
my youngest was born.
documenting of these things, like sometimes when we go back in our camera rolls, which actually there was no even iPhones back then.
Nope.
You have to find the picture in a photo album, but it's treasures.
Yes.
They really truly are treasures because it is a snapshot in time. Now we can document everything from the morning to the night, and we can send pictures to friends and things. But, I look back on that time and just realize how precious that is because we didn't have those conveniences that we do now.
Right.
At all.
I mean, were you a scrapbooker?
You were a scrapbooker.
I was a scrapbooker. I was going to try to pull you down.
I wanted to be like you. Listen, do you know how many scrapbooks I have in my closet that I've never done anything because I wanted to be like you?
Oh, well, I wanted to be like you. So there you go. That's the story of this podcast right there. So good. That's how we're here today.
Yes.
But I was going to say, we had that era with the girls.
Yes.
I'm just circling back to that real quick because we had that era with our older daughters, our first batch of kids. And then we had these baby boys that were kind of stair-stepping at the caboose.
Yes.
We call our son the caboose kids.
Oh, yeah.
And now they are so close. And it's so fun to see because they're 15 and 17 and just such great friends. And it's just really cool. They're going golfing together and living their best life. And they
wonder if sometimes they actually think about I wonder if this was their whole plan all along. And we're like, yeah, no, it wasn't. But God knows, and He puts together people. And
I don't think we could have predicted
that.
Never. But it's like a season where now that with the older girls launched and grown up and college and beyond, then
and it's been a sweet spot.
Yes,
honestly, the fact that we've kind of had our boys just kind of on our own.
We can hang out, you can go out and then have the boys with us. So I think that at the time when you're having that third or fourth or whatever you consider your baby, that you're like, oh, we were out of this season and we could have moved on, but just be patient and let God work that out. We're gonna circle back to that theme, I'm sure, a lot of times.
Yeah.
Kind of our story. So one of the things I just want to make sure that we do is when we were kind of researching for topics and what do we want to share? Our meetings, our delicious dinners. That's going to be my favorite part of the podcast is going out to
our
dinner. Content dinner. See you at the restaurant.
Yes.
Yeah. So fun. So, but when we were talking about that, a couple of verses came up that we just want to make sure that we touch on. Do you want to share those? Do you have those?
Yes.
Because my screen is dark.
Yes. So one of our verses that just touches us is from Proverbs 29:9. A sweet friendship refreshes the soul.
Yeah.
And doesn't it? I mean, refreshment. We think about that all the time.
Yeah. And when one of the things that has been a big bond for us is you were really good about sending out prayer requests for the small group and for praying for each other, whether it was a text or even through email. Back in the day.
I know, back in the day. Those emails.
It was the schedules would come out. We'd be like, the schedule is out. Diane has sent us the schedule. But I love it. And we have a schedule for this. So
yes, I know.
I love it.
I still did the schedule.
I know. She's like, here's my schedule. And I was like, oh, my happy place. I love a good calendar meeting. That'll be a different episode.
Yeah.
But that the idea that you have to be really specific in what you ask your friends to pray for does make you closer.
It does.
And we're going to talk some more about that in kind of a part 2 of this. But I wanted to make sure that you know that the reason that bond is there, and this is not like, oh, God just loves them more and they really lucked out and stuff. We put work into being there for each other.
Yes.
And like you mentioned, celebrating
the
each other's
intentionality.
Kids.
Just knowing what's going on in each other's lives. I mean, it doesn't happen by chance. You really have to make the time and the connection.
Right.
I mean, it is really about that.
And so not to look at another situation and there's no part of us that's like, oh, look at our perfect friendship or anything like that. Because there were seasons where we weren't able to be together as much or our kids were very busy in different things and stuff. But you have that instant pullback when you get that text that says, hey, can you pray with me? Can you walk with me through this? Can you pray for our business? Can you pray for my husband's job? Can you pray for our house situation or our, a health issue, a family member? Yes. We had, we've just walked through a lot of different things. And if you're not able to be vulnerable about that, you're going to have distance there. You're going to have to let the wall down and let people know your stuff to pray for them. So, but it does refresh.
It does refresh.
That's what I would do.
And in that you do find that encouragement, and it uplifts you, which brings me to the other verse. That's one of our ones that we just, really kind of hold on to. And that's from 1 Thessalonians 5:11. Therefore, encourage one another and build each other up. And that's just totally who we are to our kids. I mean, I can't even tell you how many texts I get a week that I'm constantly sharing a note of encouragement, because it's hard out there. It's hard in this world. We live in a very challenging space of time right now, and our kids need that. They long for that when they're out on their own, and whether they're adulting in a job place or they're adulting at a college or in some other new season of life, they need that encouragement, because the world, unfortunately, is not going to give that to them. And so we have to find ways to keep them encouraged. So it's a big deal.
Yeah. And that is going to be something we're going to get into in deeper topics, because I just feel like we're still learning it too, but we have enough experience with it to have some fruit. Like we've planted some seeds here, we've watered some seeds, and we're seeing the fruit that as you said it perfectly, the world's going to beat them up.
Yeah.
They need a place to come back to come home to, even when this is not their primary home anymore, that refreshes and rebuilds them, And so we're going to talk a little bit in the future. We'll be talking more about like transitioning from these are my little kids, high school to college, even younger, like to start to give them that growth space to become our friends. And it's not because we're trying to win their approval or like, I need you to love me more or be my best friend. It's because that is what the plan is. As you grow up, you're both adults. You both love the Lord. You're sisters in Christ with your daughters, your brothers and sisters in Christ with your sons.
I have always loved butterflies. That's one of my imagery that I just go to in so many different ways. And there's no better image about launching a child into the world than what a butterfly has to go through, because they cocoon. And there is this metamorphosis that happens in that cocoon. And as they develop and change to a totally different thing.
So good.
They launch into the world. And sometimes they might fly away in a great way, and sometimes they might struggle. And, as their parents and as their moms, we have to just be able to be there and, help them. But sometimes we have to take a step back as well. So it's a definitely challenging season.
Yes.
So I think what would be really fun too right now is to just kind of like let some of the listeners know some of our fun things.
Okay.
Like some of the things that we like.
Yes. So fun. So fun.
We kind of wrote a list down so we wouldn't forget.
And a lot of them overlap.
Yes.
That's a bond that we have.
So some of the things that we wrote down was we like good coffee. So that's why we were talking about coffee on this podcast. We like good books.
Yes.
There's different genres. Now, to be very honest, I haven't read a good book in a really long time.
I know.
This is, I always have a stack of books next to my bed, and the goal is always to read them.
Yes. Yeah.
But that stack stays there. And I do change the stack every so often just so that I can have some other ideas. But yes, I have yet to reach that season that I'm reading all the time.
I do want to just do a quick little side note, because all the tangents. Welcome to the podcast of tangents, you guys. We love a good tangent. This was kind of coming out of a book that you gave me. So
yes,
I forgot what it's called. Praying for
your adult children.
Praying for your adult children.
Yeah.
And so Diane's like, this book looks so good. And so she was in an extremely intense, busy season. Yes. I think you had a high school senior and a college senior at the same time.
Oh yeah, that was.
And she's like, here, read this book.
Read this book.
I read the book. Now,
kind of. I probably skimmed the book.
She goes,
I read the chapters I wanted to.
Yeah, she goes, just tell me when you finish a chapter and we'll talk about it. And so I'd be like, can you want to talk about the book? She goes, I haven't had time to read that book. sorry. I was like, okay, have you read this chapter yet? Sorry, Leigh Ann, I'm a little busy right now with my life. I was like, sorry. But I would have to read them in little doses because it was like prayers for your adult kids. And it was things that I really hadn't processed and thought about. And I would get to the end of a chapter and just be like, oh my goodness, I do need to deal with that. Like it was kind of just,
it was
life is whirling along and you're not thinking about it. But
one other fun thing we love to do is taking pictures.
Oh my goodness. We're ridiculous with the photos.
Yes, we're ridiculous with the photos. Our kids, I do think that they do appreciate that whenever they need a photo for something, they can contact us and ask us about.
Can you send me those?
Do you have that picture from back when? And of course we do. So note to the younger parent right now, just take the pictures.
Take the pictures anyway.
Take the pictures because guess what? You can always delete it now on your iPhone.
Yes.
Like we actually had to take pictures and wait for them to get developed. So, you know, now we can just edit them.
And we didn't know what you had. You had like the blurry spot.
We have lots of fun with date nights with our spouses.
So fun.
We have always made that a priority from day one. I mean, honestly, our small group that we, talked about was a marriage small group.
Yes. And a lot of marriage Bible studies. Books we read.
Lots of things.
So good. We were kind of wondering if Diane and Tim thought that we all had really poor marriages because I kept doing marriage studies over. They were our leaders. And so it was really fun. My husband and I used to tease like, do you think that they think that our marriages are still weak? I was like, I think they're just keeping them strong. It's not a judgment about that. But.
We actually heard years ago at a seminar that we went to that said every year you should do something to enrich your marriage.
Yeah.
Whether it's a weekend away, something that you can just really invest in your marriage. Yep. And so maybe it's reading a book together. Maybe it's doing something that, gets you out of your comfort zone. But something that will really enrich your marriage. So I think that we poured that into that small group.
And it's not a selfish thing to focus on that, especially, with kids, you always feel like there's something that they need from us, but there's nothing they need more than their parents to love each other and take care of each other.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Absolutely.
So good.
All right. I put down also,
that's a whole episode itself.
Tacos.
Oh yes. Mexican food. Tacos. For the win.
We love charcuterie boards.
Oh yes. All the cuteness.
We didn't have charcuterie boards when we were growing up and
it's
growing
like the
our
Lunchable for adults.
It is. This craze that has become just something that everyone goes to right now just does kind of make me laugh because it's definitely.
I know
we didn't have that.
Well,
we didn't have
art.
cute
Like
boards.
designing these are art.
Yes, and we didn't have Pinterest.
I know. We had to just share ideas with each other.
Yeah.
You had to pass it down from generation to generation.
Yes. We had magazines.
Pinterest is Pinterest, the few things I've tried that didn't meet the standard, So
yeah. Exactly.
So. All right. I know.
We put down fresh flowers.
Oh, love fresh flowers.
Gardening.
Yes. Plants.
A good pair of jeans.
Oh, yes.
Which is always hard.
Good investment. Go ahead, people. Just invest well in that.
Invest well. Comfy sneakers, scripture writing.
Yes.
And we're both writers.
Yes.
Which this is kind of a fun, side note is that we both have talked for years. I've talked about maybe writing a book, doing some different things. And when this came up, really last summer, we're just like, this would kind of blend a lot of different ideas together.
Yeah.
So that we could talk and share
that
in a very tangible way, where maybe with a book, it would take months to produce and do different things to get out into the hands of people. This can go out really quickly.
I love that. Yeah. And a lot of journaling to process these thoughts, to bring them to you.
Definitely.
To each other.
And then I put down worship music. We're big worship music. We love different concerts. We've gone to multiple concerts together.
Yeah.
We love to just praise the Lord with each other and our families. It's a big connection.
It's like a reset. It's a reset for the day that you're having, is to be able to just, what you input affects what's going to come out. And as the moms, as the heart of the home, a lot of times that moms are, that what we're spreading out to our kids and to our husbands is very affected by what's being brought in.
Absolutely.
So I think that whether that's the word, whether that's those encouraging texts from your friends and to your friends, or whether it's worship music, that's going to be Yeah.
Definitely.
Yep.
I think one of when we've been discussing all of these things about the intentionality of friendship, it it really makes a difference. Sometimes you think, "Oh, I don't wanna bother that person. I don't wanna," they're too busy or
Right.
they've got a lot going on. But it's sometimes that text that you get in the middle of the day or that mention that actually is kind of a lifeline.
Yeah.
Like, you don't even really know that you needed that
Right.
that much,
Right.
and then you get it,
Yep.
and it's really what kind of propels you for the rest of the day
Yeah.
because you're just totally, just thinking that, "How am I gonna get through this day?"
Yep.
Sometimes you're just in the muck and the mire, like,
Yeah.
you don't even know what you're
Yeah.
gonna do.
And that encouragement. Have you heard there's a phrase that I'm gonna probably not quote it perfectly, but have you heard that if you think of something good, say it. If
Yes,
it's something positive, say it to that person.
absolutely.
If you think of something negative, pray before you say
Say it.
it.
Yeah,
That it's like there's really not any reason not to say something that's going to encourage someone else.
sure.
And that First Thessalonians verse
I
talks about
know.
that, just like building up.
Building up.
You're not going to regret it. You're
No.
going to build a bond with that person. You're also going to, it just releases something in you that's ministering to them and
Yeah,
encouraging them. And um, we should do an episode on prayer at some point. But
at some
but
point.
just as far as that whole the piece of taking prayer requests and kind of
Yes.
best practices with that,
Yeah.
because I think people can feel like that's awkward and like how to do that, but
Well, and
you've
I
done it
think,
really well.
when we think about it on our kids' level, that what we model
Oh,
brings
yes.
them that encouragement because
Yes.
when you go from the different season, like when you've gone and you've had your high school friends and you've done all of these great experiences, and then you go into a college setting, or the next part, and you just don't
Restarting.
you start from square one.
Yeah.
Like, you
Yeah.
really don't know a lot of people and you
Yeah.
don't know what's gonna happen.
Right.
And it's scary. Like,
Yeah.
that's a really hard time.
Yeah.
And you just wanna encourage them that be be persistent,
Right. Right.
work hard. It's
Find your
gonna
people.
find your people. It's
Yep.
gonna happen.
Yep.
But it does take that intentionality.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
So you also have to be patient.
Right.
And that's hard sometimes,
Right.
especially today in this world.
Yeah. Yeah.
We
And
kind of
when
want that
it's yeah.
instant things to
And when it's
happen.
not working, not to let it get in your head that like, I can't find friends or I
Yes.
can't do this. It's like
Yeah.
that's so true.
So, as we wrap up today, just wanted to remind everybody to check us out on social media at Well Grounded Podcast on Instagram. You're going to learn all sorts of great things about what's coming up and also get some recaps of what we said today as well.
Yes, yes. And that latte recipe.
Yes.
The only thing we haven't covered
Yes.
is why we named this podcast.
Oh, that's true.
You want to tell them?
Yes.
You want me to tell them? You want to tell them?
Um,
I'm looking up the verse.
yes, look up the verse
Okay.
while I say,
Okay.
so number one, we always have thought that, just coffee and connections
Yeah.
is a big deal.
Yeah.
We talked about it in the beginning, the connection with our kids, that's something that we do right now with our adult kids, that we're
Yeah.
able to go and meet up with them and do things. And it's just one of those, it's a little bit out of your, not maybe comfort zone, but it's not in your house. It's
Right.
just something, a fun place.
Right.
And I kind of toyed around with fun ideas. We, wanted to name the podcast A Whole Latte More to Life. And I said we would be very stuck in the latte mode. But Leanne found a wonderful verse that she's going to read. And that's where our Well Grounded name came from.
Yes. So I encourage you to, when you get a second, go read all of Ephesians 3. It's really so good. But the name Well Grounded comes from Ephesians 3:17. And so we're just going to share that today.
Yeah.
So that Christ may dwell in your hearts through faith, that you may be rooted and grounded in love. Ephesians 3:17. We're going to be sharing that and living that. Just that's how we get well grounded, is
Yeah.
being rooted in Christ,
Yes.
rooted in Him, and God is love. So
God is love.
Yep.
Be refreshed
Be encouraged.
and stay
Well
well grounded.